this, we're making poutine for one person. So we're gonna start with 4 potatoes, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, a half a teaspoon of salt, which I've already measured, a half a teaspoon of onion powder, a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half a teaspoon of paprika. You need 1 package of poutine gravy. The instructions are on the back on how to make it. I'll show you a bit later. And you need poutine cheese curds. The best place to find these, and really I find, is No Frills. Sometimes they have them at Zehrs, sometimes they don't. For one person, you won't need a whole package. If you're making it for your whole family, you can use the whole package. And if you want to make this recipe for your whole family, you can double all the ingredients. For equipment, you're going to need a large Ziploc bag, a cutting board, and a chef's knife. And you're going to need to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. I would do that now because it can take a while to heat up. You also need a peeler. I have 2 different ones here, this one and this one. This peeler is actually really handy because when you're taking eyes out of your potato like this, you can use the end to scoop it out and pop it out. Like that. The first step to making poutine is to prepare your own homemade fries. And they take about 45 minutes in the oven, so you want to get those started before you even get close to thinking about doing the gravy. You have options. You can either leave the skin on or take the skin off. These potatoes that I have look a little beat up, so I'm going to take the skin off. If you wanted, you could just take these spots off and leave the rest of the skin. To peel this potato, I'm going to start with the peeler at the top and move it towards the other end and do it in strips. I'm also going to start a garbage bowl where I put all the peels, and then when I'm finished I can throw those all out at the same time instead of going in and out of the garbage, and it keeps my cutting board clear. Okay, I've peeled my potatoes. I started by cleaning them, then peeling them, and I took the eyes out. Now I'm going to cut them. So that is where we're going to practice our knife skills that we were learning about this week. We're going to use a claw. So we're going to have our fingers curled back, our thumb tucked under. We have to decide how we want to cut our potatoes. But to start, I'm going to cut them in half. If I want to do wedges, which take a little longer to cook, so beware of that, I'm going to cut them in half and then cut them on an angle in half again. So it'll look like this. If I want to do more like French fries, show you that as well. You can slice them and then cut them into sticks. The biggest thing is just to make sure that however you choose to cut them, you do it in a uniform way. So this is the way I'm going to cut mine. One thing to remember is that when you're cutting it, you want to get a flat surface. So if I'm cutting it in half, then I'm able to put the flat surface down on the cutting board, and then my potato doesn't rock. If I were trying to slice it like this, it would be harder. If you want to cut it differently, another way is to cut a little slice off the bottom like that, so that it then sits stable and I could work my way across like this. Also remember the proper grip. You want to hold the knife by the handle and on the bolster, so your thumb and your forefinger are on the bolster or the beginning of the blade, and the rest of your 3 fingers are on the handle. I prepared all my potatoes and I put them into this Ziploc bag, and now I'm going to add the seasoning and the olive oil. To measure the olive oil, I'm going to measure it over my garbage bowl in case I spill. I'm going to add the 1 tablespoon of olive oil, a half teaspoon of salt, the half teaspoon of onion powder, the half teaspoon of garlic powder, and the half teaspoon of paprika. I'm gonna close this bag and I'm gonna shake it. I shook it for about a minute and now it looks like the potatoes are coated with the seasoning. I'm gonna use this Pampered Chef pan. It's kind of like stoneware. You can use a regular baking sheet. If you want, you can put parchment paper on it so it's easier to clean, but I'm just gonna spread them out evenly on this sheet and put them in the oven at 400 degrees for 45 minutes. Okay, this is about halfway through. I've taken them out of the oven and I'm gonna flip them. I just wanna remind everybody that 45 minutes is a suggestion. When everyone's using different ovens, the cook time can change. So my oven runs cool, so I might leave mine in a little longer. Your oven might run high. So check it maybe before the 45 minutes and see how they're doing. But I would flip them at least once about halfway through. We're gonna start making the gravy. So on the back of the package, it has the instructions. It says all you need is this gravy mix and 2 cups of water. This whole package is enough for usually 4 students in the kitchen. It makes a ton. You usually have leftovers. And I was thinking if you want, you could half the recipe so you don't have leftovers. But if you're making it for your whole family, you can use the whole package, so you decide. So I'm gonna measure out my water and empty this into a pot. To measure out the liquid or the water, we're going to use a liquid measuring cup and we're going to fill it to this line. So you want to keep your finger here, pour it to that line, put it on a flat surface, get down at eye level, and make sure that it's lined up with the 2-cup measure. The instructions say to combine the water and the gravy mix in a saucepan. So a saucepan is actually a small pot. So a confusing name that it takes a bit to get used to. So we'll see it a few times throughout the course, so that's something to pay attention to. So we're gonna pour this gravy mix in, pour the water in, and what I'm gonna use to combine it is a whisk. You could use a fork, but it'll help the gravy powder mix dissolve into the water. Now that it's mixed, I'm gonna put it on high heat for 6 to 7 minutes until it's bubbly and thickened, stirring it after each minute, so continually stirring it. You want to make sure that you're using the highest setting that your element has. So some of them might be numbered, some might say high, medium, or low. You want it on high. I'm only starting the gravy with 5 minutes left on the potatoes. If you cook it too long ahead of time or too much beforehand, it'll create this layer on the top when it cools, so you want to do it just before you're going to use it. So this is the end. This is like 6.5 minutes and it's really bubbling, so we're stirring it constantly. I'm going to turn the heat off and I'll show you how thick it needs to be. All right, so this is my gravy. I ended up putting it on for another minute. You can tell it's thick enough when it sticks to the spoon. This is even still a little runny. Hopefully as it cools it'll thicken up. As it cools, if you get a layer of like film on the top, you can take your whisk and whisk it some more and it'll just mix right back in. My potatoes are finished. I put them in for 5 extra minutes because I wanted them really crispy. So depending on how you want them, will determine how long you should leave them in too. So this is the final product for my fries. So now I just need to assemble my poutine. So I'm gonna put fries in a bowl, put some of the cheese curds on top, and then add the gravy over top of the cheese curds to melt the cheese curds a little bit. I'll show you. All right, this is the French fries with the cheese curds, so I just put a small handful. And now I'm going to add a ladle full of gravy over top. Again, if you want more, you can put more on. But that is our poutine. Enjoy. You can also add salt and pepper if you'd want.